Welcome to iConnect, a podcast from Ocular Melanoma UK, where real people share real stories about life with and beyond this and other rare cancers. Ocular Melanoma UK knows just how powerful it can be to hear from others who truly understand the journey. From laughter to loss, science to support, each episode connects voices from across the ocular melanoma community. iConnect, bringing together people and stories. Today on iConnect, we're joined by Mr. Neil Pearce, a retired consultant hepatobiliary and pancreatic surgeon and former associate medical director at University Hospital Southampton. Neil became internationally recognized as a pioneer in minimally invasive major liver surgery, publishing widely and for a time holding one of the world's largest personal series in this complex field. His passion for innovation also led him to champion multimodal treatment for complex cancers, combining local, regional, and systemic therapies to give patients the best possible outcomes. He has been a long-standing supporter, friend, previous chair, and now trustee and active member of the Ocular Melanoma UK Clinical Advisory Panel, helping to shape the future of care, access, and patient advocacy. Since retiring due to ill health, Neil continues to dedicate his time and expertise to supporting the cancer community, while also sharing his personal experience of living with multiple sclerosis. Neil brings compassion, wisdom, and authenticity to every conversation. Neil, what a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Hi, Joe. Always a pleasure.
Hi, my love. Gosh, we've got so much to talk about today. So if I don't actually know where to start, if I'm honest, but I just thought maybe we could talk about the work that you have been known for. Do you want to take us back to the very beginning of what sparked your interest in medicine? I mean, and who were you before all that started?
Yeah. Well, I was a normal kid, really, and had a standard state education, comprehensive school. My mum was a school teacher, RE teacher. My dad was a chemical engineer, but he'd moved into the civil service. I was heavily involved with water pollution. He'd be turning in his grave if he could see the stuff going on these days. He was working on the reintroduction of salmon back into the Thames at one point. So,
Wow.
those days, distant memory. Anyway, so, my father wanted me to do all the sciences at A level. I was a bit of an all-rounder, good at, English and history and stuff like that. I rather fancied being a journalist, to be honest. Anyway, I did the sciences and because my dad told me to. I soon thought, these really aren't for me. I really don't want to be an engineer. I'm not a natural scientist. I like speaking to people. I like being part of a team with a lot of human interaction. And so I looked at what the options were, and medicine seemed to be a possibility. It was quite a struggle getting in. I got in through clearing. So, I got in by the skin of my teeth. But I was really, just over the moon to get into Southampton.
That was where you went to university as well, was it?
That's where I went to university, and it's where I ended up again.
Okay.
And
Wow.
I've just been organising our 40-year reunion, which we had 12 days ago. That was a great event, seeing people I hadn't seen for decades, seeing what everyone's been up to. So medicine it was, and I went into medical school thinking I'd probably be a GP because that was really my only experience of the medical world. But that changed when I was in my third year of medical school and did my surgical attachment. And I saw a guy called Chris, who was a consultant urologist, and he did all the big difficult cases in the urology world, all the bladder cancers and kidney cancers, and he was a very entertaining, charismatic kind of guy. And I thought, I want to be like him. Yeah.
Oh, good for
So
you.
that was my plan. So I focused on surgery. I did all right. I got a clean sweep of all the surgical prizes at university, and did some research, got a publication in the British Journal of Surgery when I was still a student. So that was quite a big thing.
Yeah,
And
that sounds like it's kind of a very rare occurrence, isn't it?
yeah, I think, probably unthinkable these days. But, it meant that when I went for my first interviews for surgical jobs, I was pretty much a shoo-in. So that helped. And I've always been an enthusiast. I've enjoyed pretty much everything that I've done in medicine. There's only a few things that I ruled out, generally because they were a bit too smelly. Probably best
Decided
I
to
don't
stay on
tell
the
you.
front end. No,
Yeah.
that's fine. We can work that one out.
And at one point I thought, oh, maybe I'll be a neurosurgeon. I was very keen on that.
Okay.
And I just didn't get the breaks on that front. So very tricky to
Any
progress.
regrets from that at all? I mean, is it
No, not
something
at
you
all. No, not
No.
at all. I absolutely found my niche at the end of the day. So I went into general surgery, got all my fellowship of the Royal College of Surgeons exams. And I worked for some fairly inspiring individuals during the 1990s and early 2000s. And there are people who showed that, you could always raise the bar, could always be something, there was always a higher level to aim for. And, taught me not to be content with being, an average general surgeon. So I didn't want to be. Linked into what my father always used to say to me at school and through medical school, there's always room for improvement. Didn't matter, how many A's I got in my O levels or A levels or whatever. It was, there's always room for improvement. He said it with a twinkle in his eye. He was very proud, but, sadly, he passed away of a very aggressive cancer back in 1992. So
he saw you enter into Southampton and become a specialist in your field.
He saw me, just start my surgical career, the earliest, parts of that. Yeah, he actually died whilst I was doing my primary Royal College of Surgeons exams. He died between the written exams and the orals, which were like a week apart. So it was quite a hard time. I told him I'd passed because he was a bit out of it by then. So the fact that I hadn't actually sat the second part, I thought, might as well just tell him.
Well, you had to pass after telling him you passed.
Of course I did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got
no way of getting out of that one at all.
No, and it was quite a tricky exam, only a 20% pass rate. So I did all right.
Yeah, you did a lot more than all right. I mean, you literally became the specialist in liver pancreatic neuroendocrine tumors. And then how did ocular melanoma metastases become a part of your work and the centre as it was down in Southampton?
Yeah, so melanoma metastases have always been, I say always, at least for the last 2 or 3 decades, they've been on the list of tumors that are worth considering if you've got a solitary lesion in the liver.
Worth considering for what, Neil? Sorry.
Considering for surgery. So by this stage, I was a consultant liver and pancreatic surgeon. And so that's sort of 2003 onwards. And so they were on the list of things that you should occasionally consider. But they were rarities. And because most people with liver secondaries from ocular melanoma have got multiple sites of disease in the liver. And most people with cutaneous melanoma, skin melanoma, they've got multiple sites outside the liver. But just occasionally you would get one. And to be honest, at that stage, I didn't know much about the difference in behavior between ocular melanoma and cutaneous melanoma. So I'd done a few cutaneous melanomas. And then, one or two ocular melanomas came my way. And I started to be really surprised at the level of information that patients with ocular melanoma were receiving. And
as in the amount of or the lack of?
the lack of awareness and the lack of screening for surveillance, looking for metastatic disease. And I think I must have ended up on a Facebook forum or something like that, probably around about 2008, 2009, because I started to get more and more ocular melanoma patients just appearing from around the country. And most of them were inoperable. Most of them had multifocal disease. But, there were some who presented with really quite straightforward, like golf ball size secondary, solitary secondary. And they would be seeing consultant oncologists who would be doing a scan every, couple of months, and it would be getting bigger. They might be getting dacarbazine chemo, or they might be getting literally nothing. And these tumors would progress from being completely operable to being completely inoperable. And I just got extremely frustrated that this was a recurring phenomenon, and that patients had had their eyes treated and thought they were completely cured, but didn't realize that this was a high-risk tumor that had substantial risk coming back. But for a minority, there was the possibility of some other additional treatment for liver-specific disease, which, whilst it was unlikely to cure them, might actually buy them sometimes 2 or 3 more years or something like that. And I started to look around at publications that there were from around the world. And it was generally that kind of 2 or 3 years is what you might expect to give somebody if they had operable liver-only disease from ocular melanoma. So then one day I got a call from, I think it was Catherine, or maybe it was Joe Gums, and saying, "Oh, yeah, are you interested in being involved with a new charity that we've just set up?" And I said, "Well, I'll come along." So I went to a meeting near Waterloo Station in London with Bertil D'Amato and Christian Ottensmeyer and Joe and Catherine and a number of others. And Ocumel UK, as it was in those days, had been set up, and this was their kind of introduction to the wider world. And so I got involved with Ocumel from there. Probably a couple of years later, I became a trustee. But I was heavily involved with the setting up of the first guidelines group. So people may not realize, but the UK was the first place in the world to have a comprehensive set of evidence-based guidelines for the management of ocular melanoma. We had some meetings with Paul Nathan and a selection of oncologists, surgeons, and interventional radiologists. And that led to the formation of the guideline development group under Paul Nathan's overall supervision and leadership. And against all odds, we managed to come up with a consensus of based on evidence of what the options were for treatment. Now, round about 2011, 2012, when this was all starting, Brian Stedman, who's a really gifted interventional radiologist that I work with in Southampton,
he is incredible.
Saved my bacon on many times. probably vice versa, come to think of it. But he had got interested in a new procedure called chemosaturation. In those days, we used to generally just call it Delcath, which was the name of the company that made it, which is where you isolate the liver from the rest of the circulation with the patient under full anesthetic and also on a bypass machine. So the blood from the lower half of the body is diverted through a machine and then goes back in the top half. So it's a bit like what you do during cardiac bypass surgery. It's the same machine.
Okay.
The idea is that you isolate the liver, and then once the liver blood supply is isolated, you can pump it full of chemotherapy, giving sort of 30 times, maybe 50 times the dose of chemo that the body could normally withstand.
So very targeted directly into
Very
the liver
targeted.
then.
And
Okay.
there'd been an initial set of studies that had been done predominantly in the US, and they'd shown that ocular melanoma did have a really strong response rate. When they were first using the kit, it wasn't as good as it became later. So there was a tendency for chemo to leak out. And so that could be very damaging to patients getting very toxic levels of chemo. And there were also one or two disasters with people who perhaps hadn't read the instructions closely enough and blew the balloons up not quite in the right place. So yeah, those sort of disasters you don't want to know about.
No.
Anyway, we've got a very expert team in Southampton, and Brian was ultra careful and cautious about the way we set everything up, and utterly meticulous about every step. We had the best anaesthetists and the best support all the way through, and we've avoided any of those disasters. And it's selecting the right people, working as part of a team full of experts, not amateurs. And so anyway, chemosaturation was just bubbling up, and I really saw this as being something of massive potential, not just for ocular melanoma. Some of the initial work has shown really good response rates in other tumor types, so secondaries from bowel cancer or pancreatic cancer.
Again, in the liver, yes.
All in the liver.
Okay.
Potential, endless opportunities. And at one time, this company looked like it was going to really fly, and it was going to be $1 billion company because there's so much potential for it. It's good for breast cancer as well. But there's been all kinds of regulatory hiccups and difficulties, and the company wasn't big enough, didn't have enough money. When it did have money, it put it in the wrong place. So it's just been such a slow process. The initial trial.
How long has this gone on for now, Neil? I mean, when were you first introduced to Delcath?
Yeah, so I first heard about it in 2011, and the papers were already in existence. So there was the first preliminary papers from 2006, 2007. So
just shows how long it takes from the dawn of someone having this incredible life-saving idea to actually get it into the theatre.
And devices are much worse to get through than drugs. So if this was a drug that showed that potential back in 2011, drug companies would have been all over it, thrown tons of money at it, and it would have been in widespread use by 2015.
When you say devices, do you mean the bypass machine that you were talking about?
No, it's the fact it's a new procedure with a bit of kit. So it's a few bits of plastic and some balloons and so on. I think the company
it cost how many million?
It's about £12,000 for all the balloons and things.
Oh wow! Okay, so not that expensive, realistically.
No, and to be honest, if they were making them at scale, then I would imagine they'd get that price right down. I mean, it's are you hard to believe they couldn't do it all, even with all the filters and bits. You would have thought it could be done for 2,000 or 3,000.
So is that single use then, this device?
Single use, throw it away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And typically you want a patient to have between 3 and 6 treatments, depending on the response. So yeah, it's just been unbelievably frustrating. I submitted applications for a NHS government funded initiative called Commissioning Through Evaluation, and they seem to be perfect for it. But each year they kind of moved the goalposts, and they either folded the scheme because there was no money left, it all gone on something else. And so year after year, I put the application in and got nowhere. And that's really been the story of chemosaturation. Every time you think you've made some progress or found a funding stream, there's some new twist to the tale. So, initially it got approval, but it got approval only kind of as part of a research trial for use. So we had a research trial, great results, showed substantial improvement in survival for a large portion of patients. Far better than any other treatment that's been found, really.
Okay.
And it's depressing that despite all of that, we're still going through repeated hurdles with NICE. I mean, honestly, if you look at how many years have gone by and the obstruction and lack of understanding, particularly when you're dealing with a rare disease. And rare disease, it's horribly difficult to generate enormous studies with enormous results. The study that
there isn't the cohort, is there? I mean, it's not like you can put 100,000 people on a study to get your results through.
And the chemosaturation study that we did most recently was a 2-arm study. So you either got best alternative care or you got chemosaturation. And the supervisory board that were looking at it basically felt it was unethical to continue it as a 2-arm study because the results were so significantly different between the two groups. And it was just they couldn't ethically and morally recruit to the best alternative care arm. So
but surely that speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Yeah, except for when you then do the statistical analysis. Your best alternative care group is very small, and everybody ends up getting the treatment. So it's it's kind of how harsh do we have to be as clinicians? Do we just have to say, oh yeah, we're going to let this group die, even when it seems unethical to us, when we've got a treatment that clearly is working? And, this is the oversight panel that were in agreement with the clinicians that it just, wasn't fair. And the UK, if it was a purely UK trial, we might have been a bit harsher, knowing how difficult it was going to be to get this through the NHS. But, it was a mixture of UK and US and, other sites. So it's kind of, we are where we are.
Okay.
But chemosaturation in Germany, they're dishing it out for secondary breast cancer, for secondary bowel cancer, secondary pancreatic cancer, etc. It's being much more widely used, although still uveal melanoma is where the best trial evidence lies. The company behind it don't have the money to set up big further trials. They've talked about it a lot, but it just hasn't been happening.
So is there something we're waiting on now in particular, or we're just time?
Well, I've retired now. For those of you who haven't spotted, I'm quite disabled.
Well,
Um,
yeah. Would do you want to tell us why you've retired?
yeah. So back in 2011, I was diagnosed with primary progressive multiple sclerosis. So I carried on operating till 2014. Initially, it was just my legs that didn't seem to work very well, which is not the end of the world when you just stood up operating. But by 2014, it was starting to affect my shoulders, and my left hand sometimes felt a bit stiff. It's just like time to stop. So I'd had a few years to do succession planning. So the people who took over from me, we made sure we appointed good people to follow on. So anyway, I went into NHS management, kind of risk and safety stuff. So a bit like poacher turned gamekeeper, and that was quite interesting. And
How did that affect you kind of mentally from being such an enigmatic part of the team down there to
I absolutely hated it. It was it was like a bereavement losing my surgical career. It really was, and it nearly broke me. And but you just got to reinvent yourself sometimes, and make the most of what you've got. And I think it was easier to do that working in the field that I did, where I saw so many patients in clinic who had, hopeless situations, whether it was metastatic pancreatic cancer or inoperable liver tumors or, metastatic uveal melanoma. I was just endlessly seeing patients who, at the end of the day, are far worse off than me. And
did
so
it
it just helped to,
change the way you felt about your patients once you'd been diagnosed with something very, very serious?
I think I'd always been quite close to my patients. I've always been very open, and all the way through my consultant career, I used to give my mobile phone number to my major cases, people I operate on, doing something significant, because if they had a problem, I wanted to know about it. And so I stayed in touch with an awful lot of my patients, about some of my pancreatic cancer patients and bile duct cancer patients from 2003 that I still see. And, they should be 6 foot under, but
Yeah, I was going to say they literally owe their life to you. So, I mean,
there's,
it's an
there's,
amazing.
oh, it's lovely. It's really lovely. It's, I'm, it's a spin off unexpected benefit from, what I did at the time. And, and I also stay in touch through the charity side of things. So we've got a
Yeah.
local cancer charity, down here called Planets, which, again, a bit like ocular melanoma, got set up in 2011. Both were set up before I was diagnosed with MS. I didn't get involved because I had MS. I got involved because I wanted to be involved with patient support and pushing for innovation and research and development.
And is it
So,
just yourself, or who's part of the charity with you?
initially it was set up by myself, Brian Stedman, my radiology mate, and a lady called Layla Stephen, who was one of my patients with neuroendocrine tumor disease. Yeah. And
And
he's
was
still
she
doing
one
well.
of your complicated, inoperable cases that you worked through?
Yeah, I
And
mean, she had a bad pattern of disease to start with. She I think came to my clinic on Christmas Eve. She was an add-on extra. I'd been diagnosed in Portsmouth. She was only like a few months out from the birth of her child, and um, she'd had all these problems throughout pregnancy, which had been put down to irritable bowel syndrome and so on. And then she finally had a scan a few months later, which showed that she had a kind of nasty primary disease with lymph node involvement and secondaries in the liver, and so technically down as inoperable. But at this stage, we were already working on a kind of approach to treating complex cancers that we call multimodality therapy. So it's using different treatments in sequence to manage what we call local, regional, and systemic disease. So local is where it starts. Regional is usually the first organ that it spreads to, like the liver. And then systemic is everything everywhere else around your body. So we like to try and give a layered approach where we think about all three ways of approaching disease. And we use everything at our disposal. One of the things that I always used to say was we use the big guns first, because you get the biggest wins by doing the biggest things. And also patients are more able to tolerate a really big insult early on.
Yes,
so if you've had, a year of chemotherapy and other treatments and whatever, and the disease hasn't really shrunk much, you've still got a really big operation to do at the end. And by that stage, your patient's much less fit. So I would tend to, use the big guns first. And then I'd usually follow that up by saying that we're going to kick it whilst it's down.
Okay.
So that would.
Is it a rare approach, Neil? Is this a rare approach?
I think it's something
that
is becoming more common, and it depends on the type of tumor you're dealing with. So it's very common now to give chemotherapy for a few months to shrink a tumor, if you've got a chemo responsive type of cancer, and then operate after that. And that's a good way of doing things. But I think it's much less common to remember the other bit in the middle, which is the regional treatments. So we often did liver-directed therapies in particular. So that could be ablation, which is either burning holes in tumors or freezing them, or we did a lot of embolization, which is blocking off the blood supply to tumors to starve them of oxygen and shrink them down. Sometimes that would be chemoembolization, where we also introduced chemo into the tumors, as well as a little beads soaked in chemo, which blocked off the blood supply. And also let the chemo leach out into the tumors. So there's some very specific tumors that really works well for. And other things that we used to do, SIRT, so that's selective intrahepatic radiotherapy, using basically radioactive beads to pump them into tumors, usually in the liver, to again try and get them to shrink away. And so basically what we used to look at and say, well, if we can make that bit of the liver operable, or that part of this patient's disease, what can we do for the other parts? So we would look at sometimes several types of regional treatment or local treatment, as well as the chemotherapy and whatever other targeted systemic treatments there were, whether it's more recently immunotherapy, or it might be biological treatments, or hormone manipulation. So,
what's the difference between immunotherapy and biological? Is biological the chemical type stuff?
So, they often all get lumped under the term chemo, but so immunotherapy is using your body's immune system to identify tumors and to attack them using your own immune mechanisms. So that's very often your immune cells, which look and try and find tumors that are hiding. And your immunotherapy helps you to find these hiding tumor cells and stimulates your own immune system to attack them and get rid of them. Wow. So that's kind of it's an ultimate thing, and it can work amazingly well. But equally, a lot of the time, it's a partial result. So it's not, always all or nothing. So biological treatments are where we're looking at the pathways inside cells that control their growth and development. So we're altering those to change the way the tumors either grow or the way that they influence the environment around them to help them grow. So that can be through inhibiting the way they stimulate the formation of blood vessels, because a tumor needs oxygen and blood in order to survive and grow. So if you can interfere with the mechanism that the tumor uses to stimulate blood vessel development and growth around it, then it effectively starves the tumor of its blood supply and oxygen. So you get tumors that outgrow their blood supply and then shrink back effectively. So, there's many other different biological ways of affecting tumor growth and tumor behavior. So, they're fantastic. And again, they've all come through in the last 20 years. If you go back to, maybe sort of 2001, 2002, the first of those sort of drugs, things like Avastin, were just coming out and made a huge difference. So, we're very fortunate that we've got lots of systemic treatments now, things that were unimaginable when I was at medical school. And, there are some tumor types which were completely, regarded as incurable unless you got them at the earliest stages, which are now very, very curable and treatable. And a classic example would be testicular cancer. Back in the 1980s, I went to my lecture at medical school and, I was told that, your advice to your patient would be, because it was often younger men, and say, get yourself down to the BMW garage, buy yourself a new 325 and drive off into the sunset, young man.
Wow.
So, there wasn't, there was no effective chemo in the early 80s for these tumors. And then effective chemo appeared, and, platinum-based chemotherapies that just...
Yes, what is a platinum-based chemotherapy? So a word randomly that's come into my vocabulary today for the first time ever. Never heard of it.
Yeah, so there's three main platinum-based chemos that I know of. The original one was cisplatin. The next one was carboplatin, and then oxaliplatin. There's probably more, but again, they're all types of classical chemotherapy. So they kill cells. They're cytotoxic chemotherapy, which means that there's a certain dose that you need in your bloodstream to reach a level where it kills a decent proportion of your cancer cells.
So, I presumed that it was like bronze, gold, platinum, and it was the most kind of superior, but it's actually it's platinum based. It's got a
it's platinum based.
Substance.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's got some platinum in it. I don't know how much. Not very much, I would imagine, but enough. Yeah,
okay.
It doesn't make
I
you.
didn't know that.
Doesn't make you all silvery shiny or anything like that.
Just it's all right.
Cool.
We can all sparkle round. It's fine.
Yeah, but they are very pokey, strong chemotherapy agents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing, because literally I hadn't heard of it at all until today.
Well,
it came up in
a
conversation, so I've learned something new. Your MS, back to your chair.
Yeah.
What are you doing day to day?
Yeah, so I started walking with sticks back in 2014, and I got my first mobility scooter that year as well. 2018, I got this wheelchair that I'm in at the moment. At that stage, I could still walk around a bit. Had haven't walked since 2022. Yeah, that was the last time I walked. Or no, I lied. 2021, September 2021. That was it. Yeah.
When we met, you were walking.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, these days virtually nothing moves below the neck. So unless I'm having some kind of involuntary spasm. I've got a funny old pattern of multiple sclerosis. So all of the damage really is at the very top of my spinal cord, where it joins my brain. So something called the cervicomedullary junction. I haven't had any scans for a few years because there didn't seem to be any point. Unfortunately, I've got the wrong type of MS for all of the fancy treatments. So every time there's been anything interesting and worthwhile, I'm never eligible for it. I've always got the wrong sort. So
it's all right. I feel like I've got the wrong type of cancer. So
yeah,
don't worry.
yeah. Obviously I can relate.
Yeah.
But at least it's slow, and it is what it is. And to be honest,
But
now
your brain functions fantastically. I mean, you're 100% on the board. I'm sure you struggle with fatigue and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not, I'm not so bad, but I think like anybody who's 59, they could probably say, "Oh, my memory's not quite as good as it was," or "This isn't quite as good as it was." But yeah, no, I'm still pretty sharp. Yeah, and that's a huge blessing because I like talking. You may have spotted, and I like people. So I still I think I've got an amazing quality of life considering the situation I'm in, and I've got there's always one thing or another when you're pretty much completely immobile, whether it's pressure sores or infections here, there, or wherever. There's always some mischief to give you torture. But
you're living at home.
Torture,
you're there. You're in your home.
Yeah. I'm remarried.
Who's with you at home?
Yeah, my wife Nicoletta, she's out doing the shopping at the minute. My dog Sydney, very similar to yours. I've got a great quality of life, like I say. Remarried back in 2023. My first wife couldn't cope with the MS and buggered off with somebody else as soon as the wheelchair came on the scene. Didn't like that. I think I probably would have been 6 foot under myself without Nicoletta. Living on your own in this situation is extremely difficult, and I couldn't be a burden on my kids. They need to go to university and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. Have your kids followed your path, Neil? Have they gone into medicine at all? What did they do?
No, not at all. Well, I say not at all. My eldest son did medical engineering at university, but he's currently doing landscape gardening, looking for jobs in the engineering field, but not getting anywhere that he wants to go. So, who knows what he'll do? He's a smart kid, and he'll find his way. My other son Jim's still at university. He's doing product design, and he likes product design. And who knows? He might do something with that. Maybe him and his brother will do something together. I don't know.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I can feel a collaboration coming on there. And speaking of, you and Nicoletta have done what with your home?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah. So back in 2019, when I was my divorce was going through, I was thinking, where am I going to live? The house I was in was big old cottage, multiple levels, and not really great. And I had bought a field a few years before. Back
just
in
literally a field.
Yeah, it was a landlocked field. I bought it for the kids to play around on because I thought it'd be better than mobile phones. And so they had their camps and built tree houses and fires and just messed around there with their mates, and probably drank and smoked weed and hid from their father. But yeah, these things happen. And so, yeah, I thought it would be great if I could do something with that field. And so I managed to buy the access and a strip of land next to it. And it took years to get through planning permission, thanks to great crested newts. But, we eventually
Thanks
got
to
through.
great crested newts, literally, as in the kind of
Great
little
crested newts.
baby
Yeah.
dinosaur things. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I've never seen one. And,
No, this is
even though
England.
we did all the great crested newt trapping measures that were required of us, there were none that were trapped either. So you might say that was a waste of money. We also had to build a lake for the great crested newts that weren't there, and newt hotels, hibernaculums they're called. So he ended up wasting about £50,000 on great crested newts. It's hard to believe, really, but
I don't really know what to say about that, but okay.
Yeah, I try not to think about it.
No.
We built this accessible home because we'd spent 5 years going through planning. Costs obviously went through the roof, and so slightly ran out of money towards the end of planning. End of building. So the 50,000 that I'd spent on the great crested newts, I would have spent on all kinds of accessible features like automatic opening doors and things, but no, haven't got any of them. And it's,
I can see behind you, you have no door. Is that just easier, just not to have a door?
Yeah, no door. Yeah, I've got sliding doors everywhere, and they were supposed to all be automatic, but they're $4,500 each to put the motors in and the voice activation and stuff. So that's gone by the by. But
and you just leave them slid open, I guess.
Yeah, most of the time. And the one that's down that corridor behind you leads to what now is where my wife works. So we've put a spa in the house. The original planning had a hydrotherapy pool, because I used to have hydrotherapy for my MS. So as time, the years went by, hydrotherapy became probably something that I'm beyond it, really. Nice though it is to float around. I'm no longer standing, no longer walking, no longer doing anything that would be useful hydrotherapy from that perspective. So we changed it from being a big hydro pool, and instead we put in a sauna, we put in a treatment room for Nicoletta, and we put in a smaller traditional wooden Japanese hot tub. And we decided bit by bit that we're calling it a spa. And at the end of the day, I've blown all my money, and the ex-wife ran off with my critical illness money. So
that happens. That is a thing.
That is a thing. It is a thing. Yeah, slightly annoying. Slightly annoying.
Just? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's got to pay its way, the house, really. And yeah, we've been going for a few months, and I've got my new role.
So you say she's got a therapy room. Does she do treatments to customers that are coming to do you stay in your spa, or is it a day spa?
Yeah. So we have, it's a day spa. We do group spa days, and people come for individual treatments. And we employ some hostesses who kind of
you have to
provide
be
teas
careful
and
with
coffees.
that word these days.
Oh yeah. Anyway, but we employ some mature ladies who look after the clients.
Very good. Excellent. Any food offering in there if people come and spend a day?
Yeah, we don't prepare anything, but it's we've got caterers who provide a lunch, etc. Or it can be
where are you? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Not far from Romsey, Bracefield. So it's the place called Savannah Spa. Kind of sound like an advert, this, Joey. So we should.
No. I'm interested because I know you've been kind of up to stuff. Because Nicoletta
everyone's welcome.
Thank you. Was Nicoletta a beautician or beauty therapist, or that? I mean, what kind of
So,
therapy is it?
yeah, massage and complementary therapies she'd been doing for probably about 5 years, 6 years, something like that before.
Okay.
Um, and that's actually how I met her originally. So I couldn't afford my physiotherapy anymore after the divorce, and so I started to have massage therapy just to try and save me from getting contractures in my arms and my legs and so on. And so that was met her, and 18 months later, who knows? It was all.
Absolutely amazing. An amazing lady. You're a wonderful couple.
Oh,
Absolutely wonderful
I'm
couple.
I'm I'm phenomenally lucky. Yeah, like I say, she's definitely kept me alive.
And
Yeah.
your involvement with planets, and I know you're on our clinical advisory panel at Ocular Melanoma UK and such, but I I stepped into probably the biggest pair of shoes by taking the chair of ocular melanoma. There's a little old makeup artist from Buckinghamshire here, follows into the footsteps of associate medical director of Southampton General after your eminent career in medicine.
But
So
but you've been great, Joe. You've absolutely hit the ground running, and things like this is a fantastic innovation, and addition to what we offer from a patient support perspective. It's got harder and harder for me to go to events and to do things, and being able to be involved a bit like this, it's great for me, and I hope it's good for some of our ocular melanoma community out there.
yeah,
Yeah,
very much so. And your planet's community and the whole hepatic pancreas, everybody who has come across you throughout your career and knows your name, both in the medical profession as well, because you say you've kept in touch with people, but I'm sure there's people who would be delighted to see you actually looking so well, because I do believe you've just recovered from both pneumonia and COVID, bless you. So,
yeah,
but you
yeah.
look really
So,
well, Neil.
well, thank you for that. As like I say, I'm well looked after. So long may it continue. That's what I
Yeah,
say.
there's a lot to be said for that. Is there anything you'd like to share with us, something light-hearted that you'd like to end today's chat with?
I don't
Something
know. You
from your anything from your surgical career, or
goodness, I could tell you some terrible stories. And well, I could tell you that from my surgical career, I shouldn't really ever have got through to my consultant post. When I was training in 1995, finished my time as a senior house officer, and I was working as a locum registrar in Swindon. And in those days, it was phenomenally difficult to get onto the training posts. In Wessex, there would be 2 or 3 surgical registrars each year would be appointed onto the training rotation. And then you would go and do 5 years as a registrar, 5 years as a senior registrar, and come out the other end. But it was just getting that yourself onto the surgical rotation was horrendously difficult. And I'd applied and I'd not even been shortlisted. And then they changed the training regime, and they got rid of this registrar, senior registrar thing, and they brought in a new grade called specialist registrar, which replaced both. And obviously the deanery who were in charge of training had a little look round to see who all the registrars were. And then they sent them all a letter saying, oh, you're no longer a registrar, you're a specialist registrar. Well, they obviously didn't work out that I was just doing a locum. I was just there for a few months, filling in somebody's shoes who'd gone and got a consultant's post. And so I got a letter through one day, and it said, "Dear Mr. Pearce, your Wessex National Training number is WES023. You are now a specialist registrar, and no longer a registrar. Please keep this number safe. You will need it, blah, blah." And I thought, So I had a chat with my old boss, who was a proper old surgical bluffer kind of guy. And he said, "Neil, don't tell a soul. Keep your bloody mouth shut. You're good enough. And those buggers at the deanery, they're too stupid to ever notice."
Oh, it's
And
fantastic.
So, I became, I became a specialist registrar, sailed through the rest of my training, and, the rest is history. But I did, when I had my first annual assessment, the professor of surgery said, "Mr. Pearce, I don't know who appointed you, but I never would have." And I didn't have much, I didn't have a thesis, a research thesis or any of that. But strangely enough, 8 years later, he did appoint me as a consultant. But there we go.
Oh, that's just wonderful. So thereby a number, literally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
skin of my teeth. I got into medical school by the skin of my teeth, and I'd been getting despondent about whether I was ever going to get to be a surgical registrar. We're not even being shortlisted. Thinking of, what am I going to do to make myself appointable, and at least get to an interview. And then all of a sudden, boom, bit of paper, somebody else's mistake, and I capitalised on it. Yeah, didn't tell anyone for 20 years. Yeah.
So did you tell anyone at all while you were still practicing, or is this something that's come out?
No, my ex-wife knew, that was it. Yeah.
Okay.
And I only started telling people, after I got my MS and was coming to the end of my surgical career. I thought, well, what are they going to do now, eh? Yeah.
Not a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's absolutely wonderful. Neil, thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Thank you. Lovely to see you, Jo.
Yes, and you. And I'll come down and see you. We get the dogs together as well. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot. You have a wonderful weekend.
Right. Okay. Do you want me to hang up, or do you want to?
No, it's fine. I shall push a button. You stay there.
Okay.
All right. Let me see if this button's working. If you or someone you know has been affected by the topics discussed in this episode, support and information are available. You can visit Ocular Melanoma UK at www.omuk.org for guidance, resources, to connect with our helpline and others who understand. Remember, no one should face ocular melanoma alone.